So after day 2, tonight's evening event, we are going to Fred Noes' house.
Yes.
Or maybe
by special invitation only that we paid for.
Yeah. Anyway, that's top secret, right? So we're just walking from downtown Bardstown just to, like the village, and it's so cute. But I think we're just getting ready to pass this house.
Yeah.
We can't tell you the address though.
We're thinking it's this one, where it says event, next to the horse with beam on it.
Yep. Stay on beam.
So after turning a corner on an unspecified sidewalk, we have reached the Bourbon Icons Dinner Check-In.
I'm staying right here.
In the shade?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh my goodness.
So it might be a little early.
Just a little bit. A little bit. I recognize you. What was your name again, though?
Michael and Dawn Mitchell.
Michael Mitchell. Yeah. So they put alphabetical order, but
By first
Oh, by first name?
From someone who does last name first, but
I couldn't handle that heat anymore today.
We left at 4.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
We went and we parked. We sat in our car in the AC.
Well, we went back to our hotel and I actually took a nice cool shower.
Oh, nice.
We were thinking about that, and then we just said, we'd just stay in the
I remember
car.
seeing you before. We were at
Yeah.
Pursuit Palooza.
yeah, I was about to say, like, that's where it was.
Yes.
That's what it was. Yeah,
I was about to say, recognize the face, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to put where we met.
Well, good Lord, how many people do you see, right?
Oh, I know.
A pretty good memory.
Oh, you're right. That sounded really good.
You guys got those two? We'll take these
You want
two.
these two? We can take these two.
No, didn't matter.
I'm right behind you.
All right.
Right there. Good. Bourbon ladies stay together. Bourbon ladies with guys.
What about you, buddy?
Are you friends? Oh yeah, you're such a female.
I'm hoping that's not salt.
Yeah, you want to make sure we prime your palate. Nah, just a little sugar replacement sugar cube, saving us just a bit of a step.
Hey, I've got no problem with that.
All right.
Just wanted to make sure it wasn't salt.
No, definitely not.
I can tell I'm tired. I'm hot. Thank you.
Yes, please. Let's see. This is where my glasses fail me.
All right. I am so incredibly excited to welcome to you to what is going to be an incredible evening, drinking some of the best bourbon that exists in the world and telling stories with the true icons in this industry. We're going to weave some tales tonight. Most of them are going to be true. We're going to have an outstanding time throughout the night. But before we go any further, I want to say a big thank you, because this is a very unique opportunity here tonight, right?
Oh yeah.
You're at Fred Noes' house, right? So why does that? Thank you to Fred. Thank you to Sandy. Thank you to Freddie. the reason that they do this kind of thing is because the motherships don't like it when you cross-brand taste. So Fred just says, we'll just do it at our house, right? So thank you very much. You're going to get to taste some of these amazing whiskeys from some of the best bourbon producers in the world. And before we go in, and how about the Kentucky Bourbon Festival? I mean, oh my gosh. Before we go any further, I want to call Freddie up, and he's going to say a few words welcoming everyone here and telling you a little bit about being here on the compound.
I think, am I good? All right, I'm good. Welcome, everybody. As Andy said, we're in my dad's backyard, a place I know pretty well. Good event. You know, we were talking earlier, actually I was talking with our guy Jason who does our events for us, and we were talking about, you know, how this came to life, and really it started many years ago. My granddad used to do this similar thing. He would talk about our products and have folks come in and just enjoy, right? Have barbecue on the grill. You might see Jimmy Russell. You definitely would see Bill Samuels here, as he's here today. But anybody was welcome, and so we were talking about what can we do different. I brought it up to Jason. I said, let's do this, but instead of having our friends sit out there, let's let everybody come up and talk. So, as Andy mentioned, it's a good neutral space for everybody to come talk about their brands and have a good time. So, I'm excited to host you all. And the other thing is, it said icon, so I thought I got to be in the crowd tonight because, you know, I'm just a guy, right? I've got the icon with me, Fred. So I thought, you know, I was going to get my birthday's tomorrow, so I thought I might get to kick back and relax a little bit. But I'll tell a little story. As I mentioned, growing up next door, my granddad lived here. This is Jim Beam's house. Bought it in 1905. I spent a lot of my birthdays listening to my granddad talk about his products, the small batch collection. And so really my bourbon education started as a young boy, right where you all are sitting. So I think it's very fitting that we have a lot of icons of the industry here tonight to hopefully educate you all, but more importantly, just have a good time. That's what it's about. Welcome to, as we call it, the compound, because we've got two houses. Our neighbor as well, we've kind of adopted them into the family, so there's three houses. If that's not a compound, I don't know what you could call a compound. But, you're welcome on the compound as always, and hopefully, what was that? Happy early birthday. Thank you, appreciate that. We'll have a good night tonight. I know Andy will get some good questions going, get everybody stirred up, so cheers and welcome. Cheers.
Cheers.
By the way, it's Sandy's birthday on Monday, so sounds like a really good reason to have a good party tonight. Two no birthdays. If there's somebody here who's just a guy, that's me. That's not you, Freddie. That's me. I'm just a guy, right? For those of you who don't know, my name's Andy Trine, and I'm the president of the Fraser History Museum in Louisville. We house the Kentucky Bourbon Trail Welcome Center. And because of that, I get the incredible opportunity of welcoming some of these legends, these icons into the museum and doing programs just like this, where we taste great products and we tell stories and we help to make people brand loyal enthusiasts for life. And it's a huge honor for me. I love it. It's my favorite part of the job. But we've never had this opportunity, right? The fact that you're going to see all of these guys together and get to taste all of these products together will make this a really, truly special night. So let's get started and bring up our icons, shall we? Chemistry degree from the University of Kentucky. Worked with the great Bourbon Hall of Famer Jim Rutledge for 10 years at Four Roses before taking over as Master Distiller in 2015. And then he shook it up a little bit, created a new product that won awards left and right. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brent Elliot to the stage. All right, with this next guy, it started 11 generations ago in Ireland, and before the night is out, we are going to hear stories about George Washington staying in a family home. We're going to hear stories about illegally moonshining and bootlegging, both in the family history and at the University of Kentucky when he was a student at Transylvania. And we're going to hear a story about murder. Ladies and gentlemen, Royce Neeley.
Royce, yay!
The last time I did a program with Royce, he actually had a gun in his hand. I'm not kidding. He didn't bring it tonight, thank goodness. I was a little uncomfortable for half the night. It is innovative, transparent, and collaborative, reimagining what the bourbon category can be. Now bending the rules of traditional distillery with open and aggressive contract distilling. To lead that, they hired an icon, a bourbon legend with 50 years in the business, many of those years at Maker's Mark. He and his wife Donna, who is here tonight as well, are the only living husband and wife team in the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame. Folks, Steve Nally is here tonight. And you all probably know Bill Samuels and Marge, who are the original and first husband and wife team in the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame. All right, now the first of our father-son teams. Robert Samuels started making whiskey in Virginia in 1784. 8 generations later, Rob Samuels is still doing it as managing director at Maker's Mark. He's been telling us stories all night here for the first half hour that are blowing me away about the things that are happening at Maker's Mark. He is brilliantly leading a truly iconic, worldwide and crafted brand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rob Samuels to the stage. His father, Bill Samuels Jr., is one of the smartest and most creative people you will ever meet, and I mean this very sincerely. Who else do you know that learned marketing from Colonel Sanders, worked at NASA, got a law degree, worked at the White House? I can assure you, folks, it is a party of one. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Samuels Jr. And now our gracious host tonight, who I had the honor of hosting at the Fraser History Museum just a couple of months ago for a father-son event that was really, really special. Freddie Noes the fourth, or Little Book as they call him, also an 8th generation distiller, now taking lead, innovating new brands, yet manning the mothership at the same time and working right along his father, Freddie Noes.
Yay!
And Fred Noes, Jim Beam's great-grandson, Booker Noes' son, and one of the most honest and earnest Bourbon Hall of Famers that you will ever meet. We've had public programs not in his yard where he uses language that'll shock you. I can't imagine what happens right here in your own backyard. Fortunately, he came off the road decades ago while touring with Hank Williams Jr. and has led Jim Beam brilliantly ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Fred Noes to the stage. I'm not sure Mike was on, but what'd you say? I was full of shit? You are full of shit. See why we love him? Yeah. And I would be remiss before we get started without pointing out that Baker Beam is in the house. Baker Beam. At Jim Beam, and quite a ladies' man, I understand. So, good to have you here tonight. All right, let's dive. You guys ready to do some tastings?
Yeah.
I was asked to manage a little business. If you need to use the restroom, walk through the brown fence over here, take a left, and into that building over there. If you need to use the restroom anytime tonight, feel free to do so. Let's dive into the tastings, and we're going to tell stories along the way. So, you know, traditionally in a tasting, you proof up, right? You start the lowest and you work your way up to the highest proof. We're starting at 108.2.
Yo! That's our kind of tasting.
A lot of fun tonight. We'll see where it goes from there. All right, Brent and Elliot, let's start with you.
108.
Let's talk about your limited edition small batch, because originally, Four Roses, Jim Rutledge did an amazing job, brought that brand back, and there were three primaries: the yellow label, the small batch, and the single barrel. And you start in 2015 and you create a new product that
Let's pretend.
immediately wins a very prestigious award. Tell me about shaking it up and creating something that was your own.
I guess you're talking about the Small Batch Select. That was 2019, and that really was a chance for me to really kind of dig in and try to do something different, because everything I was doing before that, whether it was the Four Roses Bourbon, Small Batch, Single Barrel, you know, when Jim left, he'd been in the industry for 49 years. I'd only been there 10 years. And everybody just asked me, what are you going to do? How are you going to make your mark? I was like, look, I'm just trying not to screw this up. I'm not even thinking that way at this point. So that was we were expanding, you know, as everyone's been doing, everything's, you know, growing so rapidly. So I was just trying to keep everything constant. That was my only goal. I wasn't thinking about trying to do anything spectacular. But then 2019 rolls around, or 2018, we start talking about doing a new release, you know, expanding beyond those four that you mentioned, or the three that you mentioned. And so that was really the first time that I got to sort of go to the different recipes and create something just totally from scratch. So that one's always, it's kind of special. I mean, you know, people ask what my favorite is. I'm like, well, that one, because ultimately when I made that, I'm like, who am I making this for? It's like, I don't know, can I try to guess what other people are going to like? And that's tough. So I was like, I'm just going to blend something that I like and hope everybody else likes what I like. And so I hope everybody likes that one.
Apparently they do.
Yeah.
The sales have indicated. Before we get to the tasting, let's talk a little bit about the evolution of the brand, right?
Okay.
Which has been, you know, up and down, I think is fair to say, but in the early 1900s, an absolutely dominant brand, Four Roses is. In fact, you guys seen the picture of the sailor kissing the nurse after World War II? And if you look in Times Square, at the top sign, it's Four Roses Bourbon at the time. So this is an iconic, absolutely dominant brand at the time that then through Seagram's and some other things, you know, went through different phases and then was brought back by Jim. And for a period of time, it was only available as a bourbon, like overseas in Asian markets, right?
That's right, yeah, from the late 50s up until the early 2000s, if you wanted a bottle, you had to go, of the straight bourbon, you had to go to Japan or Europe. You could get the blended whiskey here, which was, the only similarity was the name. It was a totally different product. But yeah, you cannot get the bourbon here. And I do want to mention too, the sailor in that picture, you guys know about barrel picks, obviously. He did a barrel pick 2 years ago.
Did he really?
I have pictures. I'm not going to pass my phone around now, but I'll show you guys. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's cool.
I want that story at the
That's a
museum.
complete
You
story.
gotta text
Oh
me that.
yeah,
and
we got a lot of pictures. It was a big day.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's a great story to have in the Spirit of Kentucky Bourbon Exhibition. You once humbly said it's easy to make good decisions when there are no bad options, because you're blending and mingling some really great 7, 8, 9, 10-year products. But that's not really true, right? I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into how much time and effort went into the first time you had to bring out that special selection that really had your name on it.
That first one took a long time because it had my name on it. So I was a little extra careful, took a little bit of, a little more deliberation on that one. But all of these, they take however much time I have to work on, 2-3 months. And it's, a couple hours, every morning, every other morning, an hour here and there. But it's sounds like I'm complaining, but it's probably the most fun I do every year. Like I love bringing things together, revisiting some of these old barrels that we have in inventory, seeing how they've changed over the last year since I looked at them, bringing them together and just sort of tinkering with them until something comes together that clicks. And that's ultimately what the limited edition is. I don't want to say too, I roll up in here like we're going low to high and you're low. Fred invites me to his house. I'm all excited and I roll up with a low proof bourbon. So, sorry, Fred.
There is a benefit to being the host, right? It's like, what's the highest? I'm coming in.
Yeah, he knew. He really said, was he like 140 down there? You wanted him to be last.
Just 125. We're right there. It's close. We're all close.
Much different. All right. All right.
All right, you want to lead us through a tasting of this? And
Sure,
so
yeah.
on your tasting match, folks, you're going left to right around the wonderful circle there. We'll start with the 4 roses first in front of you on the left.
Okay, I won't tell you the proof. This barrel strength, so obviously very high. So this is something we do every year. Typically, we try to release Bourbon Festival week. Started in 2008 as Marriage, but the concept was the same. Now, what I think is an interesting gauge just to see how far the bourbon industry's come. When we released this in 2008, we did about 2,000 bottles, and that was only, there were a few states. It's 2008, so it was maybe 4 states for us. In 2009, we did a 2009 release of this, and we were concerned because there were still bottles of the 2008 sitting on shelves. A special release when there weren't many out there, 2,000 bottles, and they all didn't sell. It took over a year to sell all those. But this is something we're really proud of. We do this every year, typically about 16,000 bottles now. We bring together, again, some of those older, really special batches. And this one, what I like about this one is it has some nice oak, so it's it's got some aged barrels in there, but it's still vibrant. It has a lot of nice fruit. I get a lot of juicy fruit, some deeper fruity notes, maraschino cherry or stone fruits, and some very unique, just sweet tones along with the oak, caramel, the typical notes you're going to get. But I think they all just come together in nice balance and harmony. So hope you all enjoy this one. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
That is outstanding. Thank you. You like that? Yeah. One more question before we move on to Royce.
I'm sure it's amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about Jim and Al Young. Because I had the pleasure of working with you on a project with Al Young where you blended a bunch of different year products together and put it together. Very special man. Both of them, how did they influence your career and who you are today as a professional?
And so many ways. I mean, both those guys, when I started, like I mentioned, we just come back to the U.S., we had less than 10 people in management. So Al was running the distillery, Jim was master distiller. We had one person in sales and marketing. Point is, we were a tight-knit group. We all had to work, we all had to pitch in across the board, which was fortunate for me because I got to kind of learn the entire side of, from production to marketing. I was kind of pitching in and doing a lot of different things, and which meant I was working very closely with both those guys. And I learned production and I guess the passion for the industry, how much they cared for the consumers. I learned from both of them. So it's really hard just to say I learned this. I learned so much because I came in not in the bourbon industry at all. And I'm from Kentucky, so I had a sense of the product and sort of the pride that we as Kentuckians all share, but I had no idea what the industry was like, and I had no idea how to make it, sell it. I didn't have any idea at all. So to have those guys as mentors, and others too, like John Ray, names that you all probably know, Joda Tanaka. So I was working with some wonderful people that I was just fortunate to be in that position.
Thank you. Appreciate you. I want to say, how about a big round of applause? And we're hopeful, folks, that we have an opportunity for you to ask some questions, because I'm not naive enough to think that I'm going to get to all the questions that you're curious about, so we'll bounce around the room a little bit later while we're setting for dinner. You guys will have some chance to ask questions of all these guys. All right, let's talk about Royce Neeley, the owner and master distiller at the Neeley family distillery. I think we're going to taste some Hidden Barn here tonight.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about how you embrace the heritage of your family, which was bootleg. It was illegal for a period of time. There's some stories. There's some storied stories in there.
Allegedly still might be a little illegal. Family, you know.
But you kind of built a brand around that, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You know, I just tell people, you know, it is what it is. I mean, I went to college and started telling some of my baseball buddies about, you know, stories I'd heard and grown up with, and I kind of thought everybody's grandpa had killed people, and come to find out that wasn't so true. And I knew then, you know, that you know, people enjoy hearing those stories, and it's an important part of history and an important part of Kentucky's history. You know, we've always had a good written history of the legal side, and I wanted to kind of show people what the illegal side was and just be honest about it. And I went on the Moonshiners TV show, and, you know, I kind of saw what TV was like and what, you know, the perception some people gave of moonshine was, and I wanted to, you know, show people exactly what it was like and, you know, tell them the, you know, just the honest facts of it, good and bad, because my family had a lot of both.
One of the things that I think is so amazing about this industry is the way that, you know, you're all sitting here together. It's collaborative, and people share stories, people share recipes, people share ideas, and your Hidden Barn is kind of built around that, like partnerships with other distilleries. Can you tell me about how this industry has welcomed you and what that has meant to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be up here today without many mentors that I've had. One of them was the late, great Dick Stone. He was the former Master Distiller Emeritus, you know, from the original Michters that, you know, went down in 1991. He's one of the ones that really got in and showed me how to collect yeast and how to work and grow yeast. And then with my family as well, you know, I learned a lot from my grandfather. I unfortunately wasn't around my great-grandfather much, but, you know, just getting to pick the brains of people. When you're a young guy like me and like Freddie Noes down there, me and Freddie talk and exchange ideas, and it is a great industry, and everybody's always been so welcoming. And that is very unique. You know, a lot of industries aren't like that. And I mean, I really mean that. For a young guy like me to even be able to bring our product to market, you know, it takes a lot of learning, and I'm constantly learning. I like to say I'm a student of the industry, and with this industry here, if you're not learning every day, you know, there's something wrong, because there's always more to learn about distilling and being a great distiller.
The distillery in Sparta, Kentucky has been killing it since you opened in 2015. Was that always kind of the plan? Was that at one point when you're in college and illegally, you know, moonshining and selling to your college buddies in Transient and UK, what time did you say, I'm going to open my own Neeley family distillery?
So when I started distilling when I was 19, illegally in college. Set a still up. I lived over on Columbia Avenue. It was great. I could pick a baseball up at UK's library. I played baseball at Transylvania University. It was a blast. But anyways, I got down there, started seeing that there was a market, you know, selling to fraternities, selling to baseball buddies, selling to sororities. I work with my dad in the summers. My dad owns a small construction company. He's been very successful with it, but my dad works his ass off. So I really couldn't take my dad's money and the money that he was giving me and go blow it, so I figured out a way to make some money while I was in college, and a lot of you guys know the story, but I wasn't so savvy about it with mom and dad because they figured out, you know, college kid ain't asking for money, something's probably going on. Mom rolled in one day on a Sunday, it wasn't good, still was set up in the kitchen, and you know. So anyways, at the time, I was either trying to decide if I was going to be a physical therapist or a lawyer. By the way, I'd be a terrible physical therapist, just so everybody knows. It wouldn't have been very good. But that was the goal, you know, that was kind of, I wasn't going to be a physical therapist. I can numb you, but, you know. But, yeah.
Sorry.
But I started thinking when I was in college, like, I want to do something, I want to work to where one day I can retire, accumulate enough money to open a distillery up. So I graduated from college. I'm at the time taking the LSAT. I just got done taking the GRE. I'm prepping for either going to, like I said, to go to law school or go to PT school. I'm working with my dad on a horse farm over in Midway. And the NASCAR track, I grew up around the NASCAR track, the NASCAR race is going on. So I sat down one day, started crunching some numbers, and I'm like, man, out of the 40,000 people that show up here for this NASCAR race, if I could just sell a bottle of moonshine to 5% of them, what that would gross. And I already knew what I could net off of it. Now I wasn't so sure about the tax side of it at the time, but I knew what I could net for the most part. So I took that plan to my father. And by the way, I'd grown up, so my dad would take, I grew up away from the mountains. So I grew up in Sparta, Kentucky. My dad left in '88 to get away from a lot of the illegal stuff that was going on to open his construction company. But he would always take me back. So I'd hear all the stories. I mean, I grew up around it. I was fascinated by it. And I knew he was fascinated by it. And I sat down, I wrote up this business plan, I took it to my dad. He didn't really say much. I told him all about it, and he come in the next day and he said, I'm in if you are. I'll fund it, I'll build it, but you tell your mom you ain't going to PT school. And I said, all right, I can handle it. Didn't take much convincing for Dad, took a lot more convincing for Mom. As you all know, if you all stop by the Neeley booth, she's down there slinging moonshine and smiling now, so she likes it. Moonshine and bourbon, sorry, moonshine and bourbon.
That's where the influence is. I have two more questions, but first, why don't you lead us through a tasting? My last two questions will be, because I teased that George Washington stayed in the Neeley family estate, and I teased murder. So first of all, take us through what we're tasting here.
Yeah, so we're going to try, this is the oldest release that I've ever distilled. So my master taster, master blender is Jackie Zykan. This is a 5-barrel batch selected by her. It's called Hidden Barn. It's our 7-year release. This one sets at 109.4 proof. It is double pot distilled. Mash bill is 70% corn, 20% rye, 10% malted barley. Sweet mashed, non-chill filtered. And fermented Nova top cypress. And I grow and work my own yeast strains on site. So when you taste this whiskey, there's definitely some fruit towards the front of it. A lot of fruit. Blackberries, I'm just going off some tasting notes that Jackie gave, but you get blackberries on the front of it. That fruity profile comes off of that jug yeast that we work. You can get the same type of profile, apricots right in our moonshine, right off the white dog that we distill. It's got a nice full body, a balance to it, and then it finishes up with that kind of peppery taste. I think it's a fantastic dessert bourbon, as a lot of people say.
They set out to it in the heat.
And this one here is aged 5 years in 2-year-old air seasoned oak, and then an additional 2 years in new charred French oak.
You like that? Yeah. Amazing. All right, let's talk about George Washington. Stayed in a Neeley family estate. Was it a legal Neeley family estate
so
at the time?
at the time, you can actually look this place up. It's called the Neeley Thompson House. It's in Pennsylvania. So when the Neeleys come over, they come over in 1740 and stayed in Pennsylvania through the Revolutionary War. And rumor is that the night before George Washington crossed the Delaware, he actually stayed, everybody else died, but he actually stayed in the Neeley Thompson house. Now, I don't know, exactly what all was going on there, but they did have a mill. So I'm sure if you got,
And George Washington was the biggest distiller in the United States of America at one point.
He was, absolutely. And he liked, what was it, Cherry Bounce was a drink that he liked to give out. So, I don't know, maybe some Neeley moonshine back then found its way into the Cherry Bounce.
And then 4 generations later, your grandfather killed someone. Briefly, just recap that story.
So, anytime that you, like with anything else, anytime you have an illegal side to it, moonshine in Eastern Kentucky is very territorial. And I'll tell you guys, I'll be honest with you, there was really only 2 things you could do there. You were either moonshine and bootlegging, or you were working in the coal mines. And one was just as dangerous as the other ones, especially when you had non-union and union fighting each other, literally fighting wars over it. So, we had a rival family. This was early 1902, 1897 and 1902. 2 families right beside each other, the Neeleys and the Allens, and they were in a feud over moonshining territory. And one day that feud come to a boil. They said it was over, like the pig thing with the Hatfield and McCoy. They say it was over one thing or another. But in the middle of this argument, my great-great-grandfather we still have the Colt pistol at my house. He takes this Colt pistol and he shoots John Allen 6 times in the chest with it, kills him right on the spot. And when he does, he did it out of anger. He emptied the entire magazine, so he had no other rounds. So he turns around and punches Robert's brother, John Allen, knocking him onto the ground. Well, John comes up, pulls the pistol out, shoots him in the head, and kills him right on the spot as well. He rolls up and dies. The house is still there, actually, rolled up under the porch and died. After that happened, both sides just started firing. It was 55 shots fired. There was 2 more injured, and the one killed there. Or 1 more of them killed. And when the law showed up, which the law at that time was one of our cousins, I've always had, still do. I'm related to the sheriff in Owsley County right now. We still do have law enforcement down there. When they rode up, they arrested some of the family members, and that feud kind of took off from there. And there was several more killings and things that happened. But I always tell people that it's just a part of the history. And I mean, those guys were tough, man. My great grandfather, when he killed his first guy, he was 14.
So, folks,
First, if that old Colt pistol I got could talk, you talk about the stories it could tell.
you can see why when we were doing a program at the Fraser History Museum and Royce was holding a gun in his hand, I was a little bit nervous, right? I wasn't sure.
He told me I was coming. There was a revenuer there. He said, "Come down to the Fraser History Museum and talk to this lawman." I'm like, all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Royce Neeley. All right, Steve Nally, 18 years Master Distiller at Maker's Mark. After literally growing up in Loretto, you're right there in the heart of it. Maker's Mark, you're working for a number of years, went out of state, then came back to Bardstown Bourbon Company, which is like a totally different deal, right? And you were, what I understand, the first employee they ever had. What was that call like that brought you back to Bardstown Bourbon Company?
Well, as you said, I started Maker's Mark. I actually got my education there. I spent 17 years working every job down there, when I started Maker's Mark, they were a very small company. They were producing 30 barrels a week. They were just getting started themselves. So at that point, I would work a day in the distillery. I'd go out and work the grounds. I would do maintenance. I'd do whatever. So I literally got an education there. So I learned the production process. I learned everything there. So I learned how to make whiskey. We grew our own yeast. We did everything. So I learned how to produce the product. We did one product. So I had this, the vision of producing one product there. So I gained my knowledge there. I felt a little bit experienced. I thought I knew what I was doing. So I went 1,500 miles west to get out of everybody's hair to figure I could do it or I wouldn't do it. So I went out west, built a distillery, got stuff going out there. It didn't prove out there, so I came back to Bardstown Bourbon. Well, Peter Lofton, the founder of Bardstown Bourbon, had a totally different vision of getting a distillery up and going. His vision was a Napa Valley style experience. Bring people in, show them a transparent view of the distillery, see everything that's going on, and to supplement that, make product for ourselves, also custom produce for other people. Don't make a vodka, a gin, or something like that, but custom produce for a company or a brand that could not produce because they had no distillery, or to supplement their small production facility with enough to, supplement their brand. So we did that, and we started building in 2014. We started running in 16. We had enough customer-based demand to start production at 25,000 barrels a year. The next year, we had enough demand to double that. The next year, we doubled again. I mean, the demand's been overwhelming. So we grew from that. We quadrupled in the first 4 years, and we grew to what we are now. Well, we didn't have enough product to put a product of our own on the market, so we started with either finishing product in other people's barrels, which is wine barrel, beer barrel, whatever. So we started doing what this is, discovery. But that was buying other product, which was aged product, and blending it together. So thus became the art of blending. And years past, blending was a way of covering up bad product, not having good products. We were buying good product, blending it together and making a great product. So we went from Discovery 1, 2, 3, 4 up to Discovery 12. So again, we're taking other people's product, blending it together and making what we consider a great product. So that's what Discovery 12 is.
And that's a big evolution from where you started at Maker's Mark, which is one recipe. Right? I mean, it's one outstanding recipe that has worked forever. To now, I think you're managing 60 different recipes. What does that education look like?
Well, it's really good on our end because, I get to learn from other customers, their ideas in conjunction with our ideas. Some of them come in and want to do stuff that I say, no, that's not going to work. And then some of them come with ideas and I say, hey, that's a great idea. So, we get to blend these ideas together and we get to try a lot of things. And we made Bloody Butcher corn, we've done popcorn, we've done black popcorn, red popcorn, we've done just so many different variations of what the norm was, that came from Maker's Mark, which was fantastic learning. And since I've left, they've gone off into different directions, which is fantastic. But mine was such a great learning experience there that it gave me the knowledge to go to where, when Peter started this venture, it was just, and it was what the industry is ready for now, which it was not ready for back in those days. At those days, you could not have done what's being done now.
All right, lead us through a tasting. I've got one more question for you, but let's taste this Discovery Series.
Okay, again, this Discovery, I think it has 5 different products in it that's been blended together, and you can taste some oaky, woody, fruity, floral, some raisins, just so many different expressions. Leather, oak, just so many things, fruity, just so many things in it you can always pick up. And I like to take the first sip, just kind of wet your whistle, so to speak, then take a second and just get a full mouthful of different flavors.
Yeah. They've been sitting out the sun.
It's about 110 proof. When we start off full proof. It's about 124 proof. So since then, we've gone down. We've lowered it down to about 110 proof. But most all discoveries, we found that releases more of the flavors than with that real high proof.
I've got 115.2 on my notes, so you might have been tasting bourbon for.
This is up a little bit from what we had then, but we play with the proof just to get the proof we feel it releases most of the flavor profile.
Yeah, tell me about the transparency, because it's I think that you all were one of the first that I saw, like you're literally putting the recipe on the bottle.
I think they're talking about their bean bag too.
We'll put on the side of the bottle. If there's 5 different products in there, we'll put each product, the state it comes from. We do not put the distillery because we sign NDAs. We put the recipe, the age of it, the percentage of that product that's in the bottle is on the side of the bottle. So we put everything that we legally can on the bottle itself. That's total transparency as far as we can go.
Was that a discussion that you all had when you're talking about being unique?
No, that was from the get-go.
That was the mandate.
Glass in the still house, glass in the equipment. That was something we was going to do, is put everything we can on the labels, on the product, on everything. If you come in the distillery, we're making for you, your mash bill, your process is on the board in the distillery. If you don't want to be known, we'll put a code name up that we're not producing for you. It'll be from Jane, whoever, but your mash bill, your recipe's on the board.
That's cool. One last question. When you started in the industry, distilleries were shutting down over the summer because there weren't chillers. I mean, this is a different world. Can you just briefly describe the industry and the technology changes that you've seen in your 50 years?
Yeah, I mean, there was one period at Maker's Mark, I was laid off for a few months in the summer because there was no demand. Everybody went to white spirits, went to vodkas and gins, and we thought we were probably going to close the distillery down at one point. And then it bottomed out, and it started trending up, and actually Bill put an article in the Wall Street Journal that turned the tide for Maker's Mark, and it started selling. His dad really didn't want to be widespread. He wanted to be a local sales, market, and he put that article in, and we started getting widespread. The trend started to turn. We started getting sales in. We started making. We started expanding, and everything's been turning since then. Now we're on the uphill climb, and it's just wide open, as everybody knows, for bourbon and whiskeys in the market. So it's just been a total trend upward for us.
It's been pretty good, right?
Yeah.
We got these folks here tonight. It's pretty good, right? Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Nally. And now we go to Maker's Mark, and my wife Wendy and I had the honor of sitting next to Rob and talking about all the incredible things that are happening there, the sustainability, it seems that with every generation, Rob, at Maker's Mark, that your father put his undeniable mark on this. Your grandfather put his undeniable mark on this. and you are doing the same. Like, what inspires that?
You know, it's not just me, I have to say. I mean, we started in 1953, my grandparents, with 11 team members. Today we have almost 400. And what is so energizing, not just for me, but I think for all 400 of our team members, is we are so clear on who Maker's Mark is and who Maker's Mark is not. And that influences everything. It influences the whiskey that we make. It influences the values, how we treat our team. And we believe that the future of the ingredients, you know, of course we all obsess as distillers around the manufacturing and the steps of the process that shape the character of the whiskey. And we're proud of that also. But when you take it back, really acknowledging that whiskey's agricultural, that the whiskey in your glass comes from nature. And how much do we really understand about where flavor comes from? What's the role of soil health at the biological level? And it has been just such a really inspiring journey for me, for our team, to learn so much, which is in some ways humbling because, you know, our family's made whiskey in Kentucky for a couple hundred years, and the more questions we answered, really the more questions, you know, we learned just how little we actually knew. But flavor comes from healthy soil that's also really friendly to the environment.
I'm going to ask you a question I know you're uncomfortable with because it's a personal question, and you know you like to talk about the science and the business and all those things. But you're growing up, Rob Samuels. Your grandparents are Rob and Margie Samuels. Your father's Bill Samuels Jr. When did you realize this is not every kid, right? This is a different deal for me.
You know, I grew up thankfully Kentuckians in the formative years of Maker's Mark fell in love with Maker's Mark. Because were it not for Kentuckians in the home of bourbon, Maker's Mark never would have survived because there just wasn't interest outside of Kentucky. So it was a very different moment than today, just the profile and the bourbon renaissance. But the people that did know of Maker's Mark, even when I was much younger, they were over the top passionate about Maker's Mark. And I actually worked in the distillery in high school and through those years, and just one of the most formative memories I have with my grandparents was the first memory I ever have of stepping into the distillery was I was a little bitty guy. My grandfather took me by the hand. I was in awe of everything, you know, the sights, the smells, the copper. But what he did, I'll never forget, because he actually went around and introduced me to all of the people. And he said, it's the people that make it matter. But he gave me the best advice when I graduated from university. I don't know if you'll actually remember this, but after I went to school out of state and came back to Kentucky, and I asked him for a job. And he said, well, what can you do? And I wasn't prepared to answer that question. And he said, why don't you go outside Kentucky and see if you actually love the industry. It's one thing to have an affection for a family legacy, but do you want to make it your life's work? That's a very different question. So I went away, worked for a different company in the industry. My goal was to one day have him invite me back, and thankfully that happened. I wasn't sure that it was ever going to happen, honestly. And he invited me back in January 2006, and it was a rocky start because he might have fired me within the first week based on some disagreements, but it's been amazing. I have loved every minute. So technically, Bill Samuels is chairman emeritus, technically retired for 14 years, but he is, you know, I've learned so much from my father. You know, the soft side. What I love the most about Maker's Mark is the soft side. You know, we started as a hobby, humble beginnings, you know, low margin, low volume, but today this brand has flourished. And, you know, he instilled the soft side, like this unwavering commitment to the people, his courageous decision. How many of y'all been to the Maker's Mark Distillery? Courageous decision that he made in the mid-1990s was when it was finally time to expand our distillery after like 40 years of bumping along and hanging on for dear life. he resisted the temptation to expand in the conventional way, which in manufacturing means you scale up to get bigger. Bigger stills, bigger fermenters. How do you reduce your cost base? And he didn't do that. He actually built a mirror image, exact replica distillery, same equipment, same process. And in the mid-1990s, it was $11 million more expensive to do that.
Which leads to the same product. Which
Yeah,
is
same consistency. Okay,
Yeah.
we're a single source of supply, so we are, just keeping the sharp edges on consistency and quality. But that was a pivotal moment.
I'm a son, I'm a father, right? And so when you're seeing your dad, the zany Bill Samuels Jr., right? Dressed crazy on billboards. Did you know at the time it was brilliant, or did you just think he was zany, Bill
I
Samuels?
love the way he would always much rather spend quality time in an environment like this than do mass advertising. He's always thought of customers as personal, one at a time, and doing things like in a really deep, meaningful, personal way.
Bill, I want to talk to you about taking this brand from, a local brand to a worldwide brand. You're responsible for that. And you may have a hard time letting go. So how's retirement treating you?
Well, I'm not getting paid very much. He made a commitment. The only stipulation I had, I'm not traveling. And I said, Rob, now what are you going to give me? He said, I give you all the whiskey you need. Cellar aged. I never did get last year's bottle. So anybody need an old time whiskey salesman? I'm really cheap.
I think it would be amazing because this is really sacred ground. It's so generous of Fred and Freddie and Sandy to open up their homes for us. But guess who was born next door?
Yeah.
Bill Samuels Jr.
Yes.
And you were the godson of Jim Beam?
Yeah, and this was, well, you know this, Fred. Catholics aren't supposed to baptize Baptists.
That is true. That is true.
He was a marginal German Catholic. His wife was full-time. But he did it anyway. And Fred and I have had a great relationship forever to this day. And I'm so proud of the fact that he kept a little bit of the sidewalk that went from his kitchen door to ours. Because my grandfather didn't like having to walk over here in the mud when he wanted something. And Granddad happened to be the mayor of Bardstown, so he didn't mind let the city pay for the damn sidewalk.
It is amazing. I mean, is it amazing? Like, they're all right here. You are right here, folks. What a special, special evening. Bill, you had this crazy, diverse, early upbringing. What were the ambitions of a young Bill Samuels Jr.?
Well, I had a problem. If you went to college in the old days, you had to take a foreign language. Well, I'm dyslexic, and I couldn't do foreign languages. So I had to scout around to find a school that only did math and science. So that meant I was going to be an engineer, whether I wanted to be an engineer or not, or whether I'd be worth a shit at it, to be honest. So I go off to engineering school, and it just so happens that's when NASA was created. They took the president of my little school, Case Institute of Technology, and made him the founding father of NASA. Before he left, he guaranteed all of us that would pursue an aerospace career a job. And so I took him up on it 4 years. I was one of the lucky few to graduate in 4 years. And he said, come out to California and help us with the Polaris missile. And 4 of us graduate students designed and built and tested the first non-graphite rocket nozzle used in the aerospace industry.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So was that where you thought you were going? Did you think that's where your career was
Maker's
leading?
Mark was a hobby. Mom owned half of it. She butted in. Every time Dad had an idea, she butted in and overturned. It's like she had 51% or something. not going back into that.
She was right on the branding side, by the way.
She was better than we thought she was.
Rob, will you share though? You have to share your last day as an engineer. It was not a graceful exit as an engineer.
4 graduate students working on one of the most important aerospace jobs there was, and we were experimenting with the new exotic metals. Zirconium, molybdenum, titanium. Nobody knew much about them other than they're very expensive, they're very light, very strong. And so that was our task. And they were working us around the clock. And we had to get this thing tested because NASA wanted to make a report on the second stage of the Polaris 02, and we were holding it up. To be honest, little us, 4 graduate students. So we decided to test this thing one night, bypassing a couple of safety steps. One of the big ones was we didn't check, this is a 3,600 pound test missile, and we didn't bother to test how it was tied down to the base. And it broke loose. And it left the test area under no control and came down through the roof of the executive office building at Aerojet General in Sacramento. The next morning, 4 of us got fired. So, I'm pretty creative. So I said, I better call Dan to see if he could use me at the distillery before the word gets back.
That's awesome.
And I called him, and he wouldn't give me a job, so I had to go to law school.
Rob, thanks for setting that up. Can you lead us in a tasting of the celery? Because I feel bad that Bill hadn't tasted it yet, so he's got to get along.
I think he might be jerking us around on that one. My grandparents, Bill, my dad's parents, the flavor vision for Maker's Mark was rich, creamy, balanced, with no bitterness, no bite. And don't want to bore you with too much of the history, but my grandparents chose to walk away from a 160-year legacy to chase a very different style of bourbon. And for those of you that know a little bit of our brand's history, it has been a very common topic for us. Why don't you release an over-aged bourbon, push the boundary of age? And what I would say is we resisted the temptation because once classic Maker's Mark gets a little bit older than 8 years old, it falls out of balance. It pulls too much out of the barrel. It's a little abrasive, too many of the
They must have
tannins.
poured them this morning or something.
The opportunity for cellar age changed 10 years ago when we set off dynamite in the hillside. And that was a nervous day, which I will say. We actually carved into the hillside, creating a naturally temperature-controlled environment. And the idea that came into being the whiskey that you have, the glass in front of you, was could we slow down the extraction of all the heavy tannins, but continue the oxidation? So the cellar aged, and cheers to all of you, cheers to Brent, Freddie. Thank you so much for the hospitality. This whiskey is right out of the barrel, uncut, unfiltered. 85% is 13 years old, 15% is 12 years old, and it spent half of that time in our limestone whiskey cellar.
Cheers, y'all. That's amazing. All right, one more question. Yeah,
Can I tell you a little story on Fred?
Yeah, let me ask you one question first. It's good, I have one question for you because I don't know when I'm going to get the chance again. If you could have lunch with any person in the history of time and conversation, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Would be Abraham Lincoln. He's a great Kentuckian. He's from this area, and my wife's family made all his furniture for him.
That's excellent. All right, you want to set up, Fred?
No, I'm going to tell you a story. Booker, his dad told me.
Fred, you'll get your chance.
He handles the truth loosely.
No, Okay, we live over there. Fred's family lives here. Kurt Beam's youngest daughter, Margaret, and my father went all the way through school together. And they dated. And I've got the dance book, you know, where you had to sign the book when you wanted a girl to dance with. And I've got their senior prom, and Dad had signed hers all the way down. Okay, so there was something going on. So anyway, Margaret marries somebody else. And you had said something nasty about us. I don't, it's something shitty I did in the marketplace. That was, I've done something sneaky in the marketplace. I don't know, and it pissed him off. So he goes back and complains. And his dad says, whoa, 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 now hold on. He said, you know you're almost the Samuels.
So this is tell the rest of the real fucking story. Let's fact check right here now.
My dad, Bill put out these ads, you know, kind of using Jim Beam's name, and Dad was going, what the fuck? It was probably my grandmother, for true. If I'm lying, my wife can back this up, so don't even bullshit me. Dad was fucking Granny now over in Springfield. You know, and he goes, Booker! That's the way she always talked to Dad. So she goes, you know, Samuels were good people. I went to a few dances with Mr. Bill. You could have been a Samuel. He turned that story around and said, I'm lying. It wasn't me, it was my dad. I'm just looking down right now, Bill. You better watch it.
Take it back.
Brothers from another mother.
That's camaraderie, right?
That's, yeah, we're here again.
You are not lying.
All right, Freddie, let's talk about your grandfather and your father. Two very different people. You had very different relationships with both. Tell me how both influenced who you are today.
Greatly, I would say, you know, much like Rob, I'm very lucky to be able to work beside my dad day in and day out. It's just great, you know, when you're trying to set a vision. Your family's been making whiskey 230 years next year. Some of it has been iconic to the Jim Beam, world's #1 selling bourbon, things that my granddad created. You're asked a lot of questions, right? So to have somebody that's kind of walked the same path you walked, it's always great, and you just live next door. So I'm at work, I come home, if it's still on my mind, I'm gonna come make sure it's still on his mind too. But I think just being able to have somebody that if you've got an idea about something new on a brand, or even how do we continue to uphold that legacy, someone that's been through the same things that you have, or maybe been asked the same questions, is always great. My granddad, a little different. We were really much like good friends. I kind of joke, if you come to one of those dinners, you could have been playing baseball or football with me right back there where our pool is. He had a goal post. He wanted me to be an NFL kicker. That's one of my favorites, because he said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I wanted to play in the NFL. And he said, well, I can help you get there. And he had one of his friends that was a carpenter, literally built a little goal post. It wasn't a full size, a little goal post. The part of it that I didn't want to usually leave out was I was the quarterback of the team at the time, and he wanted me to transition to the kicker, and I'm like, this is a...
He had a vision.
Yeah, he did, but he said, if you don't ever miss a kick, you'll always have a job. He's right, you know, those kickers, they get a lot of shit. But, you know, I've never seen a quarterback turn into a kicker either, so he lost me at kicker, but he always, no matter if it was me, Dad, anybody, if you had something you wanted to achieve, he was going to try to help you make sure there was no boundaries in your way. And, you know, it's something that Royce or Brent, I can't remember who said it, said if you don't learn something in the distillery every day, it's your own fault. That's one of the last things my granddad ever said to me, was if you want to get in the industry, I think you'll do good at it. And if you do, there's something there to learn every day. And I thought he was full of shit at the time, but it's a true statement. I mean, you heard it from somebody else today. There's so much going on there. Talking about, even Rob, right? Talking about how flavor is developed. That's a big rabbit hole that we've went down together, right? And we're still digging in it. So just to know that he set me up with that challenge, I mean, 2 different relationships, but both of them guided me greatly, very differently.
Fred, I know it's a huge honor for you to work with your dad and work with Freddie, obviously. But Freddie got a more tender booker than you did, didn't he?
I think he had a little better agent than I had. Dad sent me off to military school. I was one of the good kids who got sent off to military school. But when I was in there, he said, "You better get your college." He said, "This shit might not be here." And really, in the 70s, when I was in high school, I mean, Steve, everybody on the stage, because I was saying, bourbon was in the shitter. It was your dad's drink, your granddad's drink. You know, he said, this thing, they actually closed down the Boston, Kentucky plant. He said, you better get your college. Well, after 8 years and a lot of booker's money, I finally got out of college. And at the time, they didn't really have a job for me. And they were sponsoring, I know you mentioned Hank Jr., they were sponsoring Hank. He said, well, go out and fuck around with Hank for a while, we'll find you a spot. And I went out for 4 or 5 weeks, fooled around, went out west, and they fired the road manager in Sedalia, Missouri. So I got, the road manager, everybody thinks that's a glamorous job. Bullshit, you count out backstage passes, you make sure every guest is on the list. I did it for a couple of nights. I came home and said, Dad, I think I found a job. He said, really? Doing what? Hank needs a road manager. He's been out with us, with Hank, a lot. Hank used to call him out on the stage, come out here, Booker. He'd do the New Orleans funeral march. And a lot of times when Dad went around and see me, where's your dad? I said, he's home. I didn't bring him out. He coming out, no, I ain't coming out, fuck that. So, it was amazing. 2 weeks later, they put me night shift bottling line supervisor. That was Dad's way of testing me. If you really want a job or you're gonna night shift bottling line supervisor, ain't a real glamorous job. The employees, they thought I was a spy. I was looking to put his son on night shift. Night shift employees, they aren't the best around. There's a reason they're on night shift. And once they figured out, I didn't give a shit if they stuck and took a drink. Let's get the job done, so I don't get my ass I didn't give a shit about the distillery. I was kind of like Rob. I walk in and I come out, I've been running around with Hank. I've been around the distillery with Dad, but never the bottling house. So there's a lot of shit going on in the bottling house. Anybody that's ever been around the bottling house, there's all these machines. I didn't know how to work on them. I'm looking over one mechanic's shoulders. Do you want to fix it? I said, fuck no, you're the mechanic. I don't know. It was pretty cool. I built a good relationship and I moved around. When this bourbon thing did take off, after the release of the small batch bourbons, Dad hated traveling. You're going to start traveling. I said, what? Oh, you're going to start traveling. He said, I'd love to walk through that goddamn x-ray machine naked. I set it off every time. It didn't matter. He'd take everything out of his pockets, no metal. And he always said I would make him go over and hand one and pissed him off. So here goes our traveling. So he put me out on the road, trying to promote the bourbon. I got lucky enough to, meet up with Jimmy Russell at a lot of places, Parker Bean. And those guys kind of took me in just like the union folks did, down there at Claremont. So I traveled around, we're sitting down at the end of the night. Jimmy, come on, let's go take a drink. 4 hours later, you get back to the hotel. I'll meet you at breakfast at 8 o'clock. God damn, Jimmy. The next morning, he's sitting away, you're late. I'm just, the way I grew up around here, these guys, they all took me in the industry. Now, Freddie came along, and our CEO asked me, he said, what's Freddie want to do? I said, I got no clue, man. Matt Shattuck was our former CEO. And he said, do you mind if I talk to him? I said, shit, have at it, man. And he was still in college. He was a C student at best.
Thanks, Dad.
I mean, no. I just don't think it's relevant. C student.
Matt talks to him. He's on the president's list. Obviously, my talking wasn't shit. He took off and did great, straight A's, and did a great job. And Matt, he went up and did internships, and we had different paths getting to where we are today. But in the end, we're still right where we are. I mean,
different generation, different things.
You see why your grandpa sent him on the road, right? You know, relevant, not relevant. He can fill a story. So you, like everybody, want to make your own mark, right? And Little Book is probably the best example of that, but you're also managing that with running the mothership, right?
Yeah.
The money is made by Jim Beam, so tell me about that balance and how you're working.
Yeah, I mean, I like listening to Brent's story because it's kind of like an opportunity, right? Everybody's asking you how to make a mark. Well, you know, to your point, it was in the back of my head, but I didn't really, it wasn't something that you're setting out to do. I think you'll never probably make one if that's what you're trying to do. It's just be a part of it, right? And I love Brent's comment of saying he did it for himself. That's why it's probably one of the best damn whiskeys out there, right? You did it for yourself, and your skills lived up to your own testament, right? But that's what it was about. It was that I had an opportunity. I shared an idea I had. A lot of people thought I was stupid using the word blending, right? And blending different American whiskeys together. But at the end of the day, when I slid the glass in front of them, it was undeniable. It was a good whiskey, and it was just that, right? It was an opportunity for me to talk about my creativity, kind of my way of doing something a little bit different. And it led me to leading product development for all of our brands now, and I really like it because it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. I'm upholding legacies. I'm also trying to continue to be a leader, right? With Jim Beam being the world's #1 bourbon, that's in a leadership position. So you have to do things a little bit differently at times that way. And so I think it's great to just wear a lot of different hats. But I look at them at each brand as kind of the person, right? Knob Creek, that's him. That's his baby. Booker's, obviously, there's a man that stands behind that. Jim Beam, I've tried to follow his philosophy for anything that bears his name. That's a lot of it is just taking advantage of the opportunity I have, and I think I've done a decent job with it. A little book to some of the other things.
Yeah, let's taste this product, and if you both can lead us through it, that's it.
This one is kind of fun for me because it's called the Reserves. When we kicked this project off, I was calling it the Scraps. The market, I was just describing it. A lot of times, some marketing people, they don't really understand exactly what's going on, maybe in the warehouse or in the batching process. But my point was being that Fred is making everyday batches of Bookers that you see on the shelf, and sometimes there's barrels that he's not utilizing that are still made with Bookers. No water's ever touching the product. Straight into the barrel at 125 proof, bottled at cask strength. So the only water is the mash water that we used. And he's using these barrels and using portions of them, and some of them sit, 10, 12, 15 barrels floating around in these unique pockets. So I started reserving them to use for something. And when the early days of Booker's, it was one of the first couple batches were upper 10 years old. A lot of the barrels were. He really liked that whiskey 6 to 8 years old. And I just thought, he was using older whiskey at the beginning, and really just that whole thought of small batch bourbon is a segment of the category today. You've heard me say this as well, Andy. It's a segment of the category. Cask strength, it has a place on the menu. But if you go back to 1987, the only cask strength small batch bourbon was Booker's, and it was created in this backyard of Simpson's kitchen. So, you fast forward to today, there's a lot of cask strength, there's a lot of small batch. It was kind of me wanting to shake people around and say, this is the original, and here's a, long story short, a vertical blend of that. So it's got 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 11, and 14. And so really it's a vertical blend of Booker's. It's something I'll do every year. I might step outside of just the standard bourbon. Granddad liked to tinker around this backyard. There's a lot of things he made here that we might pull into the reserves. Booker's Rye is another product that was released. That might get used at some point as well. Really just to pay homage to my granddad and this idea of doing a blend or a batch at that time of 100 barrels, and that's what this will always be. 100-barrel blend of the reserves that Fred lets me work on.
Well, why don't we raise a glass to the Noes family and the Beam Blended family, and all these folks who are up here today. Absolutely, thank you.
Cheers. Cheers.
All right, folks, just about dinner time. We're gonna let one more time a round of applause for the Noes family for hosting this great event.
Yay!
These guys are gonna come back to their seats. We're gonna get dinner. We're gonna have pairings with our cocktails. The night is not ending. We'll also have an opportunity for you to ask questions of some of these master distillers, but they will be back at their seats when you do that. So thank you, gentlemen. Also, want to bring Chef up right now and get us set for Chef, what do we have to look forward to?
Always ready.
Great story, guys. Great stories. Love hearing it. Thank you.
All right. Let's keep the show going. Real quick. I'm from New Orleans. Some of the humidity from New Orleans followed me all the way to Kentucky. You may have noticed that in some of your glasses. That was all the appetizer. You still have 4 monster courses and 4 delicious cocktails to go. Throughout the course of the evening, there'll be a little time between each course. If one of the tastes, if you didn't get to taste one of the tastes because of evaporation or flocking, or I'm gonna have someone next to me at the grill who's gonna pour any taste you need replenished until it runs out.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to tell you one quick story. I'm from New Orleans, like I said. I've come to Kentucky.
Thank you.
Bill and Rob don't know this story, but the way I landed in Kentucky was one of my cousins was a rep, a bourbon rep in New Orleans. His name's Ro Landry, and he called me one day and said, I need to sell 2 more barrels to win a trip, and I need you to buy 2 barrels from Baker's. And you get to come go through the process where you get to pick the woods and finish your own barrel. And I was like, 2 barrels? That's a whole lot of money. I said, well, look, here's the deal. I can buy 1 from my New Orleans team, I'll buy 1 from my Nashville team, and we'll come up. And he turned it into a trip. So we got to come to Maker's Mark. We took 2 separate teams, and the process there is amazing. If you haven't done it, you should try it. But we essentially worked in silos, and at the end of the 10 staves that you get to pick to finish your barrel, 9 of the staves were the same between the 2 cities. But the bourbons themselves ended up tasting completely different. But that's how I got to Kentucky. I've been working with Fred and Freddie for the last 3 years, and we've done these dinners, collaborative dinners, where we try to stand shoulder to shoulder with what they do, putting liquids in the barrel. We're gonna try to do that again tonight. They have a saying, drink it any damn way you please. Well, tonight, you're drinking it the way the distillers please, and they pick the cocktails, and then we reverse engineered the menu. So those hors d'oeuvres, from the Neeley, the first cocktail was a New Orleans classic, a Sazerac, had absinthe from the Neeley family. We tried to match that with the herb saint and the oysters and the fennel and the spinach croquettes. And now we're gonna get to your next 4 courses. Your first cocktail being served now is 4 Roses, single barrel. It's a Vieux Carré, another New Orleans cocktail. That one has a little bit of Benedictine in it, lots of herbal notes, and it's finished with some bitters that are pretty heavy on star anise. So you're going to have a little pork belly with corn pudding. Pork belly's been marinated with soy sauce and then finished with a caramel that we actually put a little fish sauce in the caramel. Those will go great. Anytime we come here, we got to do fried chicken. So we're gonna do fried chicken thighs with truffle honey, truffle grits, and a little wild mushroom jus. That'll go with a high wheat
He just made a comment.
Bardstown.
Yeah.
That sidecar has lemon juice and orange curacao. That'll actually help cut through the richness of the fried chicken. The last savory course, Fred is the master of the grill, flambeing pork chops. We're gonna do a 14-ounce veal chop for you. It's an Italian-style dish. It's a veal saltimbocca, but cooked on the grill. It'll have garlicky breadcrumbs, sage, and country ham chips from Freddie's Country Ham. And then your last course, the sweet course, is going to be a Maker's Mark 46 apple butter old fashioned. Oh yeah. For that, we actually burnt cinnamon sticks, steeped them in cream, added a little bit of orange zest and vanilla, and then we'll finish you off with a cane syrup granola and some salted caramel with green apple folded into it. Enjoy your night. Keep drinking. See you on the flip side.
During Prohibition, we tucked it away in the cellar. After Prohibition, brought it out.
So I know what my favorite palate is.
We had never been on stage together, so I had to break the ice. So I took the top of his country ham and cut a little groove in it. And then I asked him to hold it. And then he drank some of his bookers off the country ham. So this is a country ham luge. Welcome to Kentucky.
Hold on. I'm gonna have to get. This is a good story, good task. You gotta up the ante tonight. Can you make a blend on my ham luge?
Of course, in real time.
That's right. So I'm gonna give you a little book, The Infinite. You've got bookers in the reserves. Now I get to tell jokes. Oh,
I need a pour spout. I need a pour spout.
I was gonna make you set the mic down.
Just so we don't drown you.
That's good. That's fair. That's fair.
He's young, you can handle it. If I got drowned one night.
So, this is Little Book Infinity and Booker's Reserve.
Let's go.
Happy birthday to you. He's worked hard, don't stop pouring.
In all fashion, right? If he offers such a generous pour, you have to return the favor. Always.
That's awesome.
I'll tell a funny story. So after we did that the first time, this guy comes walking up to me. He kind of looked like his dog had passed away. And he said, I've lived in Kentucky my whole life, and I moved to Tennessee about 4 years ago, I think it was.
Oh.
Doesn't matter. Anyhow, he said, I feel ashamed that I lived here my whole life, and I didn't know about this Kentucky tradition of a ham luge. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I've never seen that before. Somebody taking a shot off a country ham. And I said, man, don't feel so bad. You literally just saw the first one. He lit up like a Christmas tree. He said, I'm going to take that back to Tennessee. But that was a pretty good one.
If you want to play, come see Matt.